Welcome everybody to another Eye of the Serpent Tarot Pick a Card reading, and today's reading hopefully will be a bit of fun but also hopefully illuminating, no pun intended using the star as the way of choosing packs there, but hopefully, because as you will have seen if you read the title for this is all about what is the movie of your life. We're going to be looking at what kind of movie would your life be if it was portrayed, what sort of genre, what sort of time period, what sort of character would you be as the main character, what would be some of the allies you have, some of the challenges you have, all of those sorts of things. What are the kind of acts within that, what are you meant, where are you at the moment in your journey, and so forth. So just meant to be a bit of fun, and when we talk about genre or timing or whatever, it doesn't have to be cinema verite, as they say. This doesn't have to be exactly your life now. It's more what kind of genre and storyline might fit some of the key themes of your life at the moment and some of your key aims and so forth. So we will start with looking at a bit around those sorts of issues, the genre, the soundtrack, the key characters, that kind of thing. And then we're going to move into where you are at the moment, what are some of your challenges, what Spirit's advice is to get towards your goal or goals, and some other information beyond that about the key players, your sort of fortune, and the sort of key personality character points and directions for you, and then the energies that you can use to best reach your goals. So hopefully, as I say, that'll be fun. I will put down the numbers for the different readings. As always, you're more than welcome to go to more than one. Your particular movie could be in a number of different genres or a number of different narrative arcs, so that's completely up to you. But to help you choose, I am using different tarot decks for the different readings, and I've picked the star card, obviously, as you as the main character, as the representation of each of these decks that will be used. For pile 1, it's the movie tarot. For pile 2, it's the Dark Mansions Tarot. For pile 3, it's the Alchemistical Tarot. And for pile 4, it's the Dream Visions Tarot. So hopefully that might draw you to a particular reading, or the number may, or there may be some other way that you choose what particular reading you want to go to. When you know which reading or readings you want to go to, then all the timestamps, as always, are down in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So as you'll see, I actually kept out the star card because I see that as the main character energy, and so it will be present in each of the readings. But it's also because the choice of the decks for these readings was very deliberate, and it was, each of them represent to me certain types of genres, and that's what we're going to look at first, the genre or the type of movie that we're talking about, the type of life we're talking about. We'll then have a look at the soundtrack and some of the key players, including yourself, before going into the tarot to get more detail. So to me, the movie tarot in and of itself suggests drama, it suggests important and potentially meaningful sorts of movies, sorts of storylines, things that are life-changing, things that take you through a dramatic sort of approach from a challenge through to resolving that challenge, or in some cases not, though I think there's a very strong sense here of going from almost rags to riches through the capacity to be able to change and mould into the environment. It is possible as well, I think, when you see Judy Garland there, of a musical. There are musicals that are very challenging. So A Star is Born is a good example of this sort of energy, of the cherry on top being the sense of finally achieving something after a lot of hard work, skill acquisition and patience, and that prosperity coming in, but also, as I say, with Serenos there, through the capacity to change and mold yourself in some way. So A Star is Born is actually a really good example of a movie for your life. If it's not about stardom, it could be around political or environmental sort of matters with Serenus, because he looks after that and is a sort of patron god for people with an environmental or earth concern and so forth. Or it could be about making money, but in a responsible way, and a way through change in some way, with Lakshmi, I always find that hard to say her name, in terms of prosperity. So there's that sense. But this is a life, this is a movie that is serious, I think, even if it was, say, musical. And so if you are musical, you're in the performing arts, and those sort of skills could be part of this. And it could be acting, very much acting around shape-shifting and so forth. But it's a movie about that. It's a movie about putting in the hard work, having the patience to bring in the prosperity in a way that is responsible and balanced, I think, and healthy. So some of the sort of challenges, I guess, around to say A Star is Born was around the kind of almost emotional or mental health associated with it. So this suggests that the prosperity does not come at the cost of that, but it does come from flexibility in some way. So I feel that your movie of your life would be a drama of one form or another. And it would be a story of achievement through patience, building skills, and dealing with adversity. So let's have a look at what the soundtrack energy for this particular movie is. So we've got I'll Never Break Your Heart and Feeling So Good. Okay, so there's probably within this a love interest, I would say. So when we're looking at the ally or sidekick, I think we need to think there could be a love interest associated with that, which we'll get to in a minute and see what comes out with that. But it definitely is a feel-good movie. So it's a feel-good movie in there, and it's telling us that it is about a good and a happy ending. And it's also about doing something, as I say, very emotionally responsibly and not breaking the heart. So again, not like kind of what happened in A Star is Born. It's more like that sort of trajectory, but with true balance and prosperity. So that's very nice. That suggests a very happy ending for your particular movie, certainly in the way that it's tracking at the moment. So let's have a look at various characters. So we're going to start with you. We have Aquarius and Capricorn. Okay. Then with the ally or sidekick or potentially love interest, I think, for you, we've got Detective and Star-Crossed. Yeah, there's definitely a romantic subplot in your life story. And with someone, I think, who works with you around things and is very much the one who gets to the bottom of things for you, helps to sort of find the way through and so forth. May literally be a support in you achieving the prosperity, but there's maybe a bit of a challenge around the cost of that to a relationship to think about. And then the antagonist or the challenge is Fire and Vampire. Ooh, okay. So you are coming across as someone who is very a combination of being in your head and in the material world. I think this is picking up the prosperity. There is definitely a sense that your movie could be about career prosperity, political prosperity, or the powers of the world, as I say, around environmental science matters. In fact, there could be a very big aspect of that, because Aquarius could be bringing a kind of scientific approach to what it is. Your marriage, in a sense, within yourself of your business sense and your scientific or philosophical approach to things, and a very worldwide, cosmos-wide sort of energy, picking up Serenos there, really responsible energy, is part of what is going to bring about the happy ending, part of what is going to bring around the prosperity. You are meant to be successful. This drama is meant to be about you creating yourself as a power and a thought leader in the world in some way. And we will look into more detail about these people later. This is just to set the scene. You have an ally, sidekick, or love interest that is very forensic. Like, I do think for some of you, this is maybe in environmental sciences or in science in some way, or even potentially in getting to the bottom of sort of political or legal issues with that. There's something forensic about the person who's helping you. They're the person in, say, a drama about an IT scandal that would be able to really delve in. They'd be the hacker and they'd be able to delve in and see the detail. You've got the big mission, they've got the detail, but I do think either they've got a crush on you, and over the course of this you're going to realise this. So this would be someone in your life, and potentially right now in your life, who is a help for you in terms of the detail and the research and so forth. But I think they may have a crush on you, or you may have a crush on them. And so there's an element around this. There's a romantic subplot going on with how you, and it could well be in your workplace potentially, or they could be a consultant or someone like that who is providing you with advice. Then the antagonist is a bit of a egotist, a bit of a narcissist, a bit of a vampire, literally in terms of not sucking blood, but going after feeding off other people. I think it is someone who is potentially a hanger-on. In this story, it's like there's someone who may flatter you quite a bit, but who is there to feed off your success, your prosperity, and I think is very jealous of you. They want to be centre stage. If you were potentially meant to be the CEO of a large company that had a scientific or legal or academic sort of aspect, there is someone in your storyline, and probably at the moment, given this reading is for the moment, that may flatter you, that is sort of, and you may be drawn to them, I think, because they are very dramatic and they're very mysterious and they're very interesting. They're kind of that's sort of scorpionic, and then that sort of feels to me like Leo. There's a sense that they're very, very interesting, charismatic. They could be an alternative romance. There could be a kind of a push-pull between someone who is truly friendly, supportive to you and really gives you the detail that you want, and the person who potentially gives the mystery and the glamour and the passion, but they feed off you. Whereas this person, the friend, I think, but could be more than a friend, is really more who you're meant to be connected to. But it's almost like, first of all, there has to be the work done on whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. So in this story, it is a rags to riches, I think, or certainly a growth in power, material outcomes and so forth, with someone who is competing with you but possibly also trying to seduce you, to control you, and someone who would be a wonderful friend but possibly could be more, but who will give you the detail. So this is the sort of person who could see through that energy. So there may be something, they may be two friends or two co-workers who you perceive at the moment as being a little bit in competition with each other, but there's a different dynamic going on. It's a very interesting storyline, pile one. Okay, so let's use the tarot. Let's have a look at what act you're in now. And what I mean by that is, in a movie, you have the first act establishes the scenario. The second act is where a lot of the main action and the engine of the plot operates. And the third act is where things are resolved. So this is really probably to get us an idea about how far along you are, how far close you are to the sort of breakthrough moment, or whether you're really just starting on this journey. So let's ask Spirit for a little bit more detail on which act are you in your movie of your life at the moment. Okay, so I think firstly we've got 2 3s there. I think that we are really tilting towards you're in the third act. This does not mean this is the end of your life. You could have any number of movies in your life, so don't take it in that way. But I think it does mean that whatever the movie, the story is at this point, you are coming to that culmination point. And I think that does fit with that particular card, because it suggested that after a lot of patience and a lot of work, something was going to pay off. What will be required of you in this act is to work out who to keep in your life and who to part from. That's going to be important. There's quite a lot of emotional fallout from a choice, and I think it may be a choice between these two people, or a choice between the advice that you're getting and what that relationship is, and whatever support you feel you're getting from this person, because there's something that is in fact operating against you in that. The antagonist is likely to become more obviously an antagonist, but I suspect they may have been something quite different to you up till now. So, and this really is only if this storyline fits. This is not necessarily, it could be someone you've had a romantic relationship with, but it's far more likely to be someone who was a collaborator, or someone who worked for you, or someone who provided you with services in some way and was very flattering. Whereas the person who was really your ally in one of those sort of roles is the person who told you the truth and got to the core of things, but I think has a bit of a crush. So there's an emotional fallout in this act for you, and a separation, but it is to bring you to the material outcome, and it's the first of material outcomes. So again, I'm sort of saying to you, this is not the only movie of your life. This is a particular point, and it looks as though you are about to achieve one of your goals in terms of prosperity, in terms of material outcomes. But in this last act, there's a bit that comes to the surface around the relationships and around what people want of you and how they see you. So let's ask Spirit for some really key ideas about the challenge or the plot points that we're looking at, a little bit more detail about that, and then we'll ask for Spirit's advice. Okay, so the challenge is there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of drama in Act 3 in this. And I think it's because there's a lot of prosperity and a lot of real achievements at stake here. And there is a lot of debate. Like, it's interesting. We've got the Ten of Swords reversed and the Ten of Cups reversed. There could be emotional blackmail. There could be, somebody talking about the consequences of your choices. For some of you, it could be that you leave a workplace to go to another one that has more prospects and there's sort of an emotional fallout in that. For others, it could be within a workplace that there's major changes, disruptions, and downsizing or resizing or restructuring or something like that. Whatever it is to propel you forward, but it requires quite a balance of emotional understanding. And I think that's where your ally is going to come in. That scorpionic feeling is more emotional. It's more acute emotionally. You're a little bit detached with Aquarius and you're very focused on the outcome. So you need someone who is, as I say, more forensic, even if they do have a crush, a bit more forensic and a little bit more emotionally adept to help you balance that. They're coming up here as the King of Cups. So even though it's in the challenge, I think that Spirit is telling you that moving towards that energy is useful. But there is somebody else in your life, a friend, a lover, a workmate, whatever it is, who is likely to be a bit histrionic about it, likely not to want to let go. Now, the good news is it is also suggesting not only are you in the third act, but that many of the major dramas of the second act, so to speak, have already passed. The worst is over. The key now is taking up the challenge to move forward and to bring things more into balance. So let's ask for Spirit's advice on how to do that. Okay, firstly, leave nothing to fate. The Wheel of Fortune card is not really necessarily good or bad, whether it's up or down. It really says the same thing in some ways, because it says that there are cycles and so forth. You should not just leave to fate, however. You should not think some of these issues, there's sort of whatever this emotional blackmail is or the manipulative energies that are around, don't just leave it to fate to sort itself out. You need to make a material decision. It looks as though it could be something like having various people who are working for you and knowing that one is actually in competition with you, but not wanting to make the decision to deal with that, just kind of hoping it's going to sort itself out. But that's a little bit too idealistic. Spirit says, don't just trust to that. There's something not clear. There's something in this energy. The person is not an antagonist necessarily in the sense of an arch villain or something like that. They're more manipulative and they're more wanting to feed off your energy. It could in fact even be a relationship that you're in and there's better sort of connections for you, or as I say, it could be a collaborator or a consultant or someone. Could even be with the King of Coins reversed, someone who was a mentor for you. There might have been someone who was a mentor and actually has been helping you out to some degree and sort of very talking you up, but there's something, if that's the case, a bit narcissistic about it. So it's a bit like that love bombing that sometimes comes from narcissists before they expect always for you to be eternally grateful and eternally admiring them, because you're meant to be coming into your own. So there's something like that going on in your life at the moment that is driving this drama, and is the only real thing that you need to be aware of, is not to just think that's going to sort itself out in some way. Okay, so let's get a little bit more information about the movie, characters and so forth. And part of that, the first thing I want to do is have a look about if there's a director of this movie. So this could pick up this person potentially if they are operating now as a negative King of Coins, or it may be someone else who is influential in the storyline. So it could pick up things from your family, people that have been teachers of you, whatever it might be. So we're just going to put out some cards, and it's really just to see if someone occurs to you. And the concept here is someone who may be having some influence on your choices, the way this narrative goes, outside of you as the main character. So this is for a collective reading, so some may fit and some may not. It's just if you recognize someone in this, then that tells you something about someone else's influence, for good or ill. It could be either. So, director, we have the performing arts, intelligent, and a fire sign. Okay. I think this is showing this antagonist energy is also potentially directing far too much, because we've got a connection again with fire there. Or this person is very similar to this person in some way, and possibly someone who would influence you or guide you on this would tend to maybe side with this person because they would align with them. It could be either. The good news is the person is intelligent, and they're very much about the creative and performing arts and so forth. So if this is the person, you may well be able to deal with their influence by recognizing their intelligence and their sort of performance skill, giving them, in a sense, that narcissistic supply. It may be a way to deal with it for you. If it's someone different, then it suggests that there is something artful about this person, and they are looking at your situation with a great deal of intelligence about how you can really establish yourself. And maybe it could even be, I'm getting, for some of you, this could be like a consultant or something like that is in employer brand or in your personal brand or something like that, a marketing person or something like that, someone who is taking what you have in terms of sort of your intellect and your capacity to make money, but also branding it in some way. So that's a possibility. We'll get a couple of other characteristics for the director. Gold. Spots. Okay. So gold, yeah, they may indeed be someone, if you are already established in some way in a business or in presenting and preparing who you are and in how you shapeshift in your own stardom to become a brand, they may very well be someone who can elevate your brand, make it expensive, luxurious, and so forth. So there's that energy. They could be a little bit heavy-handed in what they tell you to do. So if this is, as I say, a consultant, they could be trying to control you a bit too much. If it's a friend who is taking on almost quasi role like that, you may occasionally feel like they push things a bit too far. With spots, we've got, in a sense, that the concept of the leopard doesn't change its spots. So there's routine and consistency about this person. They don't shift their message and they don't shift what the end goal is. And I think to some degree that suits you. With Capricorn and with Page of Coins being where you're headed to in this particular act, there is a lot to be said for consistency and all of those sort of things. So that is a good sort of element to have if someone is having some sort of directorial influence on your life at the moment. So let's see just a little bit more about your friend and about your other person. So I'm going to use similar sorts of cards, the same sort of cards again. So we're going to be looking for something about each of those. So I'm going to pull a couple of these sort of cards for the friend and a couple for the adversary or challenger in the life, and similarly with these cards as well. So let's do the friend first. Social butterfly and ambitious. Okay. And this is just to help you identify who the person is. And orange and Aquarius. Okay. So firstly, part of the reason that you're friends, and also partly why there might be the star-crossed thing, is that you both meet. There's a meeting of the minds, definitely, and a meeting of ambitions. It's definitely someone who will help you in achieving your outcomes. It may literally be a partner, a work partner or a collaborator, but they definitely get it, and they really like the way you think, and they're very drawn to that, and you have the same sort of ambitious and unconventional way of looking at things. But you go sort of like to the transpersonal level, I think their Aquarius links with a kind of scorpionic energy. So it goes sort of to the depths and the detail. That's why we got the detective, the forensic energy. They're very creative and they're fun to be around. This person's really fun to be around. You may not actually realise, as I say, I think they might have a crush on you, but I don't think you know that they do. So this, you know who this is, this might be coming as a bit of a surprise, because I think they appear to be very confident, very ambitious, very free-spirited, all of those sort of things, and a great ally to you. But underneath this, there's a beating heart as well, so just be aware of that. Okay, and for this somewhat vampiric antagonist, let's see what else we can get. Healer? Narcissistic, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That's very strongly the energy I was getting off it. And Dragon and Pisces. Okay, so they may appear, for all that they're sort of passionate and fiery, to have a softer side as well too. And that might be part of how they know how to do emotional blackmail, actually. So when you push back or you feel that they're trying to take too much, they may turn on the Pisces sort of charm, the sort of I'm romantic, I'm vulnerable and so forth. But don't be fooled. This person, it's about narcissistic supply. They may tell you that they're sort of in therapy or trying to get healed, or you may think that they have healing abilities or something that to you, at least initially, perhaps the way that they love bomb you is healing at first. Dragon energy in Chinese astrology is outspoken and energetic, can appear very generous, is intelligent. I do think this is saying that for many of you, this person who's a challenger and a competitor is also having an inordinate impact on the storyline at the moment. They're like the director as well. I think for most of you, that's the same person. It won't always be, but they'd be very similar sorts of people. So it does tell me that you may be drawn to people who you think can almost make up for the lacks that you feel you have. You know that you are very smart and you're very good at manifestation and all that, but you may not think that you are as alluring, charismatic, and fun and everything as these people seem to be. You may even underestimate your intelligence. There is no way with that original combination of Aquarius and Capricorn you won't be intelligent, but you may have a tendency to idolize certain ways of thinking and expressing things, and I suspect this person has that impact on you. So that's why they're the challenge, because they could draw too much from you and control too much, which I think slows you down in getting to where you're meant to get to. So that's the key point there. So now that we've looked a little bit in the various characteristics, I'm going to use a classic fortune card deck to look at the fortunes that are operating in this third act in this particular movie for you. And then we're going to have a look at some other astrology energy around it and some sort of emotional energy around it before we finish off with how to bring it all together. So the fortunes that you're facing at the moment. Okay, so it is a happy ending. I knew that it felt right from the beginning that this is a happy ending, so that's good. And you do have a good friend. I just think that good friend might care about you a bit more than you realise. But if not, there's certainly a very genuine sort of sense of supporting you, and they may in fact be watching and thinking you're star-crossed with some of these people and it's getting in the way, but you're certainly going to triumph over adversity and the long journey again right from the beginning. This has not been easily won. Wherever you are, you've put a hell of a lot into it to get where you've gone. So let's look at some astrology energy around you in this third act of your movie at this point in time. Pile 1, new moon, and second house. Yeah, so this is a story, it's all the way through, about rags to riches, about material outcomes, about what you value on all levels in the second house, your possessions and so forth, and new beginnings. This is saying with the seeding that you're coming up to the point of the first, this is the Page of Coins. Remember I said that there was a sense that this is the beginning of a number of adventures for you. So I think that you're going to be, at the same time that you're reaping the rewards of your patience and your hard work, you're going to be seeding something new, the next step and so forth. And it's very focused, as I say, on the second house, which is about your values and so forth, and what you can possess, what you can own. All right. So I also want to pull a card from the Into the Lonely Woods pack, because I think there's always a time in a movie where the main character can feel a little bit alone or a little bit stuck. So we just want to look at what energy could be around that for you as you go through this before we close out. The littlest blessing. So I think what this is saying, I think it's saying a couple of things actually, what I'm getting from it. One is that this is the beginning, that you are, that even if it's a great outcome in this particular movie, which I think it will be, it's the beginning. It's the beginning of something. But I also think this is your friend. I think that many of you who have come here, you have a friend around you, an ally around you that could be so much more, but I don't know if you really see that or understand that. I think you think that both of you meet in the mind with the Aquarius and so forth, and I think you do think they're really fun and great to be around, but I don't think you realise that underneath there's this really tender heart and they really care about you. Okay, so let's get some affirmations, chakra affirmations, and then also astro chakra energy, just to close this off, for the best energies that you can focus on in the movie of your life at this point, pile one. The third eye chakra and the heart chakra. Yeah, this is the subplot. This is the subplot. There is something about the heart. There is something about love. Even though this appears to be a movie about achievement in the material world, and it will be about that, there is something also about the heart and getting more in connection, I think, with the littlest blessing here, the co-star, so to speak. The third eye chakra with labradorite talks about transformation and synchronicity. So this is a transformative energy for you, but it is transforming your life into the prosperity it's meant to be. The affirmations are, I am always transforming spiritually. So that connects you to a spiritual place. That connects you to that Aquarius energy. And I understand the significance of synchronicities. So look out for those. I think it's in the littlest things and it's in the detail. Remember that the co-star was the detective. It's in the details where the beauty of all of this is and where the connection to the heart is. With malachite, there's release and guidance. So I think releasing energies around you that maybe weren't working for you, as I say, were a bit narcissistic, a bit vampiric, to get towards the littlest blessing, but the one that is actually core. And malachite is there. And the affirmations are, I release past traumas and I seek guidance from my higher self. So you know, with the third eye chakra there and the heart chakra, you connect those two. It's all going to come together for you. I think that it's like any of the illusion from the antagonist will fall away. The true value of this friend, whether they end up being a lover or whether you just really value the friendship even more, remains to be seen. That's your story, but you get in touch with your heart and you get in touch with the heart of the movie, because at the end of the day, this sort of genre of movies is always about a hero in a way, a hero who is building something better and they are rewarded for building something better and dealing with the challenges and doing it. And I think you're involved in that in some way on your work level or creatively or something like that. You're here for a bigger purpose, and this is the first step. So I hope that resonates for you, pile one. I hope it was fun and you enjoyed it. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you care to share about it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Actually, pile one, I just started to take away the cards and realised I hadn't done the astro chakra. So you'll see an addendum in the timestamps for this. That sometimes happens when I get a bit carried away with the overarching story, but we'll just pull a couple of astro chakra cards to close out for you. So creativity and the heart chakra, love. So yes, the heart chakra is very important. Sorry, I've taken away the crystal chakra cards, but we did have the heart chakra as well. So that is about the transformative power of love and gratitude. I think once you start to realize what this person around you has brought, there is a lot of transformative healing energy that comes from that. In a weird way, that might be why healing is coming up around the narcissist, because it's almost like once you see that, that becomes healing. Once you realize some of the patterns of the hangers-on around you, that heals you to be able to really see the littlest blessing. And there's creativity, which is about Uranus, about individuality. So there's change, and you are meant to bring in a change, and this is a change process for you. So it's just a little addendum for you, pile 1, because I forgot those cards, sorry. I hope that that also rounds out the reading for you, and I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. As you can see, I've kept the star card, and I did that very deliberately because it's you as the main character in this. And it's to help me in the first stage of this reading also in working out what the genre of your movie is. And each of the tarot packs that I chose for this, I did it very deliberately for particular types of genres, and then using some of these other cards get a sense of almost the subgenre or how the storyline flows. And I see the Dark Mansions as being in a number of areas potentially for a genre. Certainly because of the very stylized and it feels to me quite often sort of period type of sort of clothing and almost Dickensian sort of figures and so forth in the Dark Mansions Tarot. It does make me think of period dramas, you know, the Downton Abbeys, the Pride and Prejudices and that sort of thing. It can also, because of the quirky Tim Burton-esque side of things, potentially be in that kind of darker horror type of thing, not slasher horror or anything like that. I'm not looking at any movies like that in these readings, but, you know, sort of things like, particularly here where we have Her Wicked Ways or the Snow Queen, something like Maleficent, you know, from the Disney sort of movie thing. Or, you know, if it was Pride and Prejudice, it could be Lady Catherine de Bourgh looking down on Elizabeth Bennet, for instance, in Pride and Prejudice. So there is, I think it's either sort of something that has a lot of social niceties, requirements, expectations and so forth, or something that has a sort of fantasy sort of element about rising from a position of not having power into having power, because this is what you are meant to do. You are meant to shine illumination on something that is not right in some way and take on a leadership role with the Zeus energy there. So Hecate, again, is a dark energy in some ways, but is a very positive energy because it is about illumination in the darkness. So there is something about your movie which is literally staring darkness in the face. It is being willing to go into the abyss if necessary. It is taking on the very strong cause of right against something that is dark, oppressive, controlling, even if it was in a sort of, say, horror sort of fantasy thing, magical, but more dark magic. So your movie at the moment is the hero's quest to take a position of leadership that banishes the dark and the manipulative. So there's political elements, particularly social elements, or it could be social, as I say. It could be very much within sort of family and friendship circles where there are people who are controlling and dark energies. I'm sure this is picking up what we're going to see around the antagonist. But you have a quest to do that. You have a movie story about bringing that hope and illumination, because the star is about illumination as well too. I do think that you will shed light on the truth of a matter in some way. You could be a journalist. This could be a bit like All the President's Men as a movie, for instance, or Spotlight, or any of those sort of movies which were about investigation and journalism to find, you know, and to be able to speak truth to power. But it's a significant battle that you have on your hands. Okay, so let's have a look at what the soundtrack to this movie is. So we have Weak, and we've got I've Been Thinking About You. So I think what that is, I think weak in that sense is more about the feeling of not being strong compared to the powers that be. So there's music, the soundtrack around this is about the building of strength, I think, and it's through thought, and I think sorting it through. So your mind is very, very sharp, and it is the thing that will make you overcome a feeling of weakness when confronting power in some way. So the soundtrack is all about that. It's about building from probably almost minor key, sort of almost sad sort of music into something that is far more forward moving and triumphant as time goes on. I feel like Hecate there is very triumphant. I feel like Zeus taking the position of leadership is triumphant, but it is through thought, the mind, the analysis, the understanding of the games that are being played. Okay, so what we're going to look at also in setting the genre is a couple of cards, archetype cards for you, a couple of cards for your ally or partner in all of this, and a couple for the antagonist, which will probably pick up a little bit of that energy. So for you, we have caregiver and beauty. Oh wow, sort of Snow White and Snow Queen and beauty. There's something, you're very attractive. That's going to be part of what actually propels you to being able to shine the light. There's something very compelling and attractive about you, and something deeply caring that people respond to. It's almost got a Cinderella-esque type of feeling to it there. Then your ally, okay, is a wallflower and a priestess. Okay, so this is someone who very spiritually acute, probably is able to pick up the nuances of the sort of dark energy, almost a spiritual war. Like some of you might literally be involved in some form of spiritual warfare, I think. And you have a friend who is a bit shy and retiring, doesn't really want to be seen in the spotlight, but has a very strong connection to the spirit world and to the information, will help you with shining the illumination, may even literally help you make the connection with Hecate. And then the person, oh, okay. All right, so interestingly, this has a very divine masculine sort of feeling to it. Doesn't mean this, it doesn't have to be about gender, so it didn't have to be the evil queen, it doesn't have to be the evil king, but it's someone who is very attractive as well and very, very ambitious. They have got, I think there's something for many of you that you're in a public sort of profession, a profession that relies on sort of the appearances and beauty and aesthetics in some way, and the person, this is like someone who is king or queen of the castle and very, very ambitious. I suspect that you represent initially to them a threat to their position on the throne, and you know what, you are. But the difference between you is that you come from caring, they come from self-love. And so they want to keep all the glittering prizes because they want to be the one that draws everybody in and the sort of one that sort of leads out. But you lead in the end from illumination and from the beauty of truth and caring, and from, as I say, this ally around you, I think, who helps you connect to the spiritual side of things as well too. So yeah, there's something, this is, and if it was set, say, in a Pride and Prejudice thing, that would really fit with that kind of feeling as well too, or a Downton Abbey, where the environment that you're in is all very much about beautiful manners and how people look and, you know, class systems and all that sort of thing. But you come from something more genuine, and you are very much able to shine a light on it. It's actually interesting with Pride and Prejudice. What I also think of is the author of that, Jane Austen. I mean, her brilliance in being able to shine a light on what some of those social niceties were and some of the hypocrisy in it. So there's an element or a feeling a bit like that associated with it. Okay, so let's have a look with the tarot about what act you're in. So what I mean by that is that there's normally a 3-act structure to a movie, and you will have more than one movie in your life. So this, if you're in act 3, it doesn't mean you're about to sort of finish your life or anything. It's just this particular movie and this particular narrative. But in the first act, you're just starting to understand the issue. Often the first challenges come up, the first thing to sort of wake one out of complacency and look at what needs to be shifted. The second act is where the core plot points happen and where you really get that sense of momentum. Most of the challenges come up. You have sort of periods where you feel like you're getting there, periods where you feel like you're just not ever going to be able to make it until you break through. And then the third act is more about that breakthrough, and the final dramatic points occur and the outcome happens. So we're first of all going to ask Spirit, what act are you in at the moment in this movie? Okay, this one definitely wanted to come out, so wow. Okay. For a start, this is pretty major. Whatever you're doing is pretty major. And of course, it could be just major in your life and amongst your friends and all of that sort of thing. But I think for many of you, this actually has a very big world. You're seen by the world, or potentially going to be seen by the world in some way. And it's very transformative. It's a very powerful energy with all those major arcana. What I would say is that I think that you are in the second act, but near the end of the second act. And why I say that is that there's a plot point that tends to happen in the second act where everything appears to be on a precipice and possibly not going to work. You'll notice that if you understand the structure of movies, you'll notice there is always a point, sort of probably about 20 to 30 minutes out from the end of the movie, where all seems to be lost before, in fact, you get the breakthrough. And I think this is what these energies are showing. You are at a point where you don't want to make a decision. You don't feel you have all the information that you need. If this story was you about bringing out a journalist article around somebody in power who has been abusing their power, for instance, you would not be sure if you had all the information that you needed and whether it was the right time to go to print, for instance. There's still some warring forces that you're trying to deal with, and you have a worry that the timing could get ahead of you so that it can't be completed, but you know this needs to come out. Whatever this is in your life and whatever level it is, it looks as though you're at a point where you have identified the antagonist, you have identified the power issue that is being dealt out in some way. If it's in a relationship, you've worked out you're in a relationship with someone who maybe seemed very attractive, but someone who actually was very controlling and needs to be separated from, that they had you almost under a spell. That's a possibility with these sort of cards as well. And I think that you're getting some illumination at this point from the person who is connected to what's happening more spiritually. But you're at that point, you're at the point where you know something has to give, something has to come out. So if you are feeling really stressed around something like this, remember the narrative arc is that after that, the resolution comes. So you're at that point. If you come to the right reading, you'll know what this is. So given that, let's ask a little bit more about the challenges that you're facing at this point. Okay, these two definitely wanted to come out. Okay. So this is interesting that you had the caregiver and now we have the Queen of Pentacles. For some of you, I think this has a connection to family issues. For some of you, this is around nurturing, your role to nurture and how nurtured you were. For some of you, there could be an issue around that. And even potentially if this is in a relationship, it could be that you are co-parenting, for instance, and some of the sort of realizations about the control that is operating is making you have to think about that and have to think about how to salvage what you need from that and get away from this petty stuff, because it is mainly petty. This is the other thing that Spirit is saying. The challenges look big because it's the revelation, it's the understanding, it's the aha moment that's big. The actual challenges aren't as big as they appear, and you are well positioned because you are more caring and more authentic, and I think connected to someone who can give you some really good information to be able to carry all this through. If this is about truth telling in some way to move to a position of leadership, the challenge is to understand the battles that you're about to face are not as big as you. You are able to get beyond them. So let's also ask what advice Spirit has for you. And I think, that makes sense, because if you're going towards truth and illumination, that's always more powerful than sort of egoic games and so forth. Spirit's advice. Spirit's advice is picking up this is what I was saying about the narrative arc. Don't be afraid. Let go of the fear. You don't need to be afraid. You are more able to deal with and go through whatever this change and this illumination is than the other parties that are not operating appropriately can go through. The worst is over. It is just petty stuff left. And this is about freeing yourself from some form of oppression. So it's your oppression or it's freeing others from oppression. There's a lot of energy around that, but the only thing that could get in your way at the moment is worrying too much with those sort of energies. So don't worry too much and go to your friend, I think, because I think they get past the mind. You have a very sharp mind, as I said. A lot of what you found through thinking it through. But your friend, I think, your ally, sees it on a spiritual level, and I think will be able to help you transmute some of this energy and free yourself from an almost obsessive need to fight the fight, when maybe the worst of it is actually done. You've got to the point of the realization, and that was the hardest bit. Okay, so now we're going to look a little bit more detail into some key characters before we look at the fortune of it and some advice for you. So the first thing we want to do is we want to have a look at whether there is someone I would call the director of the movie. So what I'm thinking about here is someone who has quite an influence on you or the other parties involved in the way that a director would on the story arc and how it's filmed and all of that kind of thing. It may or may not turn out to be your friend or, your antagonist, but it may also just be someone who has some influence on things and is able to help you potentially. So I'm just pulling out some characteristics from two sort of personality type decks. So these are fairly general, so it's really just to see if this triggers in you a recognition of someone. If it doesn't, it may mean that you are the director of your own film here, and that's fine, and that you're not sort of looking to external sort of forces for guidance, but it could also be someone who has either more influence than they should or just the right amount of influence to help you. Travel and adventure. Water sign, medium or dark hair. So these are pretty specific. If you've got a director, it looks like they love adventure. They love the sort of the chase, the goal. They would like the concept in you of chasing down the evildoers and coming to a position of power and so forth. But they may not be around a lot with travel and adventure. They may be someone who is an influence or a guide in some way for you. Could even be a spirit guide, but they're not there all the time. There's a strong emotional connection to you. They may or may not have medium or dark hair. Got Taurus and silver. Okay, and I think they're a little bit, you'd know them if this is a person. They're kind of a weird combination of being self-effacing but also being very stylish as well. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. I think they're more like someone who can move in the corridors of power, wealth and money or whatever, and sort of like wear the clothes, but they're not connected to it. They're not wedded to it in any way. So I think we're more getting sort of someone who is an observer. It could be, say, again, if you were a journalist like in All the President's Men, it might be another journalist, a sort of senior journalist who's seen it all before and can talk to you about that, but is sort of off looking for their own stories as well. So I don't think you've got an incredibly controlling sort of director here. I just think it's maybe someone who comes in and out of your life and can give you perspectives. Okay, so now we're going to do a similar thing for a little bit more information about you and about the other actors, sorry, not about you, about the other actors. So we're going to do the same sort of cards for the friend or ally and for the antagonist. So first of all, for the friend, performing arts, down to earth, guilty pleasures, okay, look like they'd be fun to be around, and Gemini and earth. So yeah, they are very earthy. I think they have a very strong spiritual side, as I say, with the High Priestess. But they really enjoy life. But I think you'd have to get to know them well, because remember they are coming up as the wallflower. So they might have some great skill. They can sing, they can paint, they can play an instrument or something like that. But I feel like that's sort of something that they keep to themselves and maybe show to you. As I say, very down to earth, very practical, but spiritually connected as well. It's like the down-to-earth side. I think that many of you, as I say, are in environments that are very much about appearance and about social niceties and all that sort of thing. This person is a bit of a wallflower because to them, that doesn't matter. They're more interested in what's the sort of rights and wrongs and the spiritual side of things. But they can be witty and entertaining when they need to, but I think it's only with those that they really care about. This is not something that other people would see necessarily. Okay, and let's get some cards for the antagonist. The Snow Queen up here, or the Aries, King of the Castle type. Procrastinator, Earth sign, Social butterfly, and water, attention. Okay. I definitely think this, if you've come to the right reading, then your movie is around, as I say, you know, sort of either an industry that is very much sort of dramatic and public in some way, or very socially high order, high class, that kind of thing. There's definitely something like that operating here, because they are, I think they have a position of power, influence or whatever, partly because they're able to grab attention and so forth, and they can be social butterflies when they need to be too. I actually think there's some similarity between your ally and your antagonist. It's just that one is on your side and a little bit more retiring, and this one is more in everybody's face. But they're both earth signs. I suggest that also means that for a lot of you this is through work in some way, some sort of work connections. But this person is a bit dreamy in themselves and doesn't really like to take action so far. They have already achieved some degree of stardom or leadership or whatever. Their issue with you is that you have so much energy coming through and you can take their crown, but they don't want to actually have to do anything about it. And the good news is that can help you win, because they're all kind of about the surface. They're not about achievement and so forth. And I think that they're almost like the emperor's new clothes, and I think that you'd be able to show that quite clearly. So let's have a look at the fortune of where you're up to at the moment using a classic fortune cards set, and then we're going to have a look at some astrology and other advice for you to close out. So the fortunes of where you're up to at the moment. Okay, so this is picking up what we saw about where you are in the story. So as I said, it very much looked as though you were kind of on the precipice of can this work out? That point in the movie that comes in every movie where you think it's not going to work out before it does. And that's really what this says. Your luck will soon change. So if you have felt that you couldn't find the right audience for what you want to illuminate, couldn't move forward because of this rather lazy preening peacock over here, or whatever it might be, your luck is about to change. There's rejuvenation and fulfillment coming through for you, and you are safe from harm. So that it's not, you have the protection, you have right on your side, basically. And if you feel weak to start with, you're going to move into that, how you can think it through to find your way through. But you're certainly about to have a breakthrough in whatever this is. So let's have a look at some astrology energy to help you hasten that breakthrough, pile 2. Fixed, 12th house. Okay, so fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio and Aquarius. You might be one of those, but if you're not, I think this is saying stay fixed to your purpose. There is a kind of a sense of consistency and stability and just moving forward. Do not lose hope. Everything is about to shift for you. You're at that point of the story. The 12th house is about secrecy, privacy and so forth. You don't have to share that with everybody. Certainly with your friend you can, but don't go giving the attention-seeking sort of lazy preening peacock over here any ideas. Keep it to yourself. There's a certain amount that you can keep hidden till you're ready. It is also about bringing the hidden out, I think, with the 12th house. So again, it's picking up that there's something about your story which exposes what hasn't been working so that you can bring a better thing in. There's always a point, and you potentially are very much at this point with where you are in the story's arc, where the hero feels a little bit alone. So I want to pull a card from Into the Lonely Woods Oracle to see what that sort of energy is for you at the moment, pile 2. Ooh, death moves amongst us. I think that is just changes here. Death is ultimately change, rejuvenation. Remember this said that rejuvenation and fulfillment are coming in. It's being able to let go of what isn't working anymore, and there might be something there. It might be that the crisis you're having is whether or not you have to give up certain things to achieve what you need and whether it's going to be worth it. But that change and that rejuvenation is the thing that brings through what will ultimately help you and give you the companionship that you need. So let's ask for some crystal chakra affirmations for you, and then we'll pick a couple of astro chakra cards to close out the reading for this movie of your life, or movie of this stage of your life. So we have the crown chakra and the heart chakra. So the crown chakra connects you to the spiritual, and I think that is going to be helped by your ally, who is the high priestess, if you recall. So the crown chakra with purple fluorite is about dreams and visions. So don't underestimate your own dreams and visions. You are able to illuminate yourself. It's not just your friend. The affirmations are, I pay close attention to my dreams, so do that. And I never lose sight of my creative visions. So don't feel like there is too much of a cost in moving forward. You are meant to illuminate something. And it has to do with your heart. And with chrysoprase, we have meditation and detoxification. So it says, I meditate to become closer to spirit. So I actually am getting that for some of you, the ally might actually be a spirit guide. That might be why it's coming up as a high priestess. If not, the ally might be someone who can show you particular spiritual modalities to help you. And we also get, I detoxify myself of harmful behaviors, connections, and environment. So yeah, you're detoxifying out from whatever this is that you're seeing. And if you feel as though it's going to beat you rather than the other way around, that's not the arc of this story, and things are about to shift in your direction. So lastly, let's have a look at some astro chakra energy to help you with winning the day. Okay, so this is all about, it's going back to how you think, and it's how you illuminate and how you speak, and it's why I get that sense of movies like All the President's Men or whatever. This is about communication and about authenticity. And it has to do with your survival. It has to do with your root chakra and who you are. It is going to be important for you to take up the leadership role you should take up and to be true to who you are, to be as authentic as possible, to be able to be individual, to not just fit in with the social mores that you're in, and to communicate your feelings and to be able to voice them, to give power to what you see and the heart of what you see. That's how you're going to win in this, because you are genuine, and it comes from that caregiver space. You care about others. The people who are in control of whatever it is that you're trying to illuminate don't. They're very egotistical. They're very much about social status rather than social good and so forth. So your storyline is about shining a light on them, and you are about to have a breakthrough. So do not doubt that, and do not doubt yourself. I hope that this resonates for you, pile 2, and I hope you enjoy the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and if you care to share about this, if this resonates, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So you'll see firstly that I've actually kept the star card out from the tarot pack that I'm going to use in this reading, and I did that deliberately because it's sort of you as the main character, the star of the movie, but it also is because the choice of tarot decks for this particular reading to me had a resonance towards different sort of genres, and this is what we're trying to look at here. What is sort of the genre of your movie? What gives us some of the sense of the kind of narrative tropes and concepts that might be playing out in your life at the moment and would play out in a movie? And with the alchemistical tarot, there's sort of like 2 types of genre I think that tarot really connects to. One is the sort of spiritual fantasy type of quest sort of energy. So a Lord of the Rings or a The Witcher or something like that. I know that The Witcher is a series, but that kind of sort of feeling. And the other side, I think, is the sort of fantastical spiritual side of things around sort of other worlds or that kind of thing. So I think this is all around spiritual development, personal spiritual development, or on behalf of other people. And I do think for you it is largely on behalf of other people, but the process of doing it is amazingly transformative, because we have the crown of the butterfly Bambini from the Divine Circus Tarot, which is all about major transformation and the pain and pleasure and ultimate victory of transformation. Literally with the butterfly energy there. The butterfly, when it's in a chrysalis, has to break down all its constituent parts to completely to become the butterfly, going from the caterpillar to the butterfly. So it is a fundamental change. There is something spiritual or almost fantasy-like. That it doesn't mean it's a fantasy in your life, but those sort of elements around a quest that changes you utterly and opens up a sense of power for you, brings power in, and the power that comes from transformation and change, because Oya looks over transformative change. But with Prometheus, there is a sense of altruism about it. There is a sense of sacrifice. You are the sort of person who, when following a spiritual dream or a spiritual quest in some way, and I think you do this often in your life, would sacrifice yourself if necessary. Now, this does not mean, just as Prometheus would, this does not mean your story has to end up with you sacrificing yourself, but you are the sort of story hero that comes from the heart and comes from wanting to do true good for others. And as I say, in that kind of spiritual or fantastical sort of thing, normally that is shining a great light in darkness. Normally that is transforming something that has got, that is holding others back. If you think about Prometheus, he brought fire to mankind, which revolutionized man's capacity to be able to control and work with their environment in many, many ways. So this transformative energy is moving yourself or others through an area where they are stuck, and you are doing it altruistically, even if it is at a cost to you. So you are very much the mythic. This is a mythic sort of feeling to it. This is a mythic sort of story. You are living out a mythic structure at the moment, and there is something that you will transform in yourself or in others, and I think it's more likely to be the latter, though you will probably transform with it, to bring about that. And you are very, very selfless in that, which of course will bring up its own issues when we're looking at things like antagonists and challenges, to make sure that you don't become too self-sacrificial. Okay, what we can also look at around the genre is the soundtrack to your movie. So we have Inside That I Cried, and You Give Love a Bad Name. Okay, so this suggests that this has something to do with love or relationships, and it suggests that it's breaking someone free from being in a relationship that was not helpful to them, or that you are transforming to break free from a relationship was not helpful to you, even if that sacrifices certain things in doing it. So there's an added storyline here, which is about relationship, which is about love, and which is about, I think, freeing oneself, because underneath there is a sort of sense of unhappiness. So I think many people who've come here, you are either in a relationship that has got you stuck and you need to transform and move out of, even if that is a sacrifice, or you are helping someone else. Your storyline might be literally about helping someone else. You could be a therapist, you could be a best friend of someone who's going through it. But understand that if that's the case, if you are the person guiding the energy, you're still the main character of your movie. So you will transform with this as well too. And it's your preparedness to go right to the brink, to even risk yourself in bringing that transformation and that change, that is the key thing. But it's got something, I think, to do with relationships. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the characters. So we've got a couple of cards for you, a couple of cards for an ally or friend in all of this, or a sidekick, and a couple of cards for the antagonist or challenge. So for you, we have Shadow King and Romantic. Okay. For your friend, we have Player and Friend. And for the antagonist, we have Saboteur and Goddess. Wow. Okay. So for you, I think for a start, whatever factor of your life this is playing out in, and whatever relationship you're either trying to transform or you're trying to help somebody else transform, there is a big power element to this, whether it's power in a workplace or whether it's the power of emotional control and so forth, or even, because we are looking at fantasy and mythology and the spiritual here, even a little bit of woo sort of magical power operating around all of this. You understand power, and you understand power in yourself and the price of power in yourself, but you are a romantic, you're an idealist. So you would not fall into the shadow, but you are aware of the shadow. I think this is part of the thing. I think the person that you're trying to help maybe is your friend. Your friend is maybe at this point dealing with or around relationships that are quite risky for them, or the way that they're risking their sort of having risky behaviour around who they connect with or whatever. They think they're having fun, but you can see that there's other dynamics operating here, and they are a good friend and you do want to help them out, but you're aware that it's their own sort of side of wanting to have fun that's potentially putting them into that space, and it could be a tricky thing to try and get them to transform out of that. The thing is that there is someone sabotaging all of this. It is either someone they're involved with that they have to be free of, or it could be a frenemy. Like, this has a feeling of a frenemy that is very powerful, very seductive, and able to sabotage your efforts potentially, maybe to free somebody from a relationship, or to even sabotage your romanticism and their sort of capacity to also get into better and healthier patterns. This almost has a feeling of like three witches: the sort of white witch, the black witch, and the sort of somewhere grey in the middle that could go either way. So picking up that sort of like mythical, fantastical thing. This person is powerful though, but they do not mean well. They like to control other people in their relationships, and they do not want the transformation that frees people. And they're likely to have some power in relation to you, though you have a hidden power. And there's a real rivalry that's operating between you. So if this is in the workplace, they could be a bit senior to you, but you have an inherent power that they sense and they want to potentially control because they're a bit threatened by it. If it's friends, they are maybe the leader of the pack, but underneath you're really the influential one, and they know. So they possibly go to the person that they feel, which is your friend, the person, your ally, the person you're trying to sort of help, I think, to get them on side. So there's a lot of emotional stuff here, and they would not be above retribution to you if you change the dynamic too much. So it's got, there is a risk to you around this, but on the other hand, you are ultimately stronger than they are. It's because you hide your strength and you allow it to transform. They need the pageantry of it all to some degree. So that's interesting. Let's have a look at what act you're in at the moment. So what I mean by that is, in every movie or even series to some degree that you'll watch, there is a sort of first act which sets up the situation, the challenge, the issue. The second act is where a lot of the plot points occur and the sort of battle occurs on one form or another. And then the third act is where the big challenge happens and the resolution happens. So we just want to see where you're up to. And if you're in Act 3, it doesn't mean that your life is nearly over or anything. It's just this particular movie. So okay, I think that you are on the cusp of the second and third acts. And the reason I say that is that we've had the Eight of Water here, which is moving away from that which hasn't worked, and maybe even having made some of the sacrifices already. That normally happens in a narrative structure after the pivotal point where all seems lost, which often happens sort of near the end of the second act or near the beginning of the third. I feel as though something has occurred around this that has really brought things to the surface, and you are prepared to walk away from that which is not working. And part of that is potentially walking away from your own prominence, your own sort of power and so forth in some way. If this was in a workplace, then it may be that you're embattled with someone who has more more kind of political power, and you know that you need to move away from that, even if you really had a right to be there, that there is a sacrifice. You've worked out the sacrifice, and part of it is about who you are in the world, and part of it is also about what friendships you have. So it's possible this transformation in the end needs to be you because you can't help your friend. That is one option. If you are staying around relationships that are not healthy for you, or a workplace that's not healthy because you want to support a friend, but the friend is kind of connected more to this sort of the politics and the games of it all, it may be that it's not worth the Promethean sacrifice, that you need to transform yourself and move on. So I think you're in the process of working all of that out at the moment, and it does make you feel a little bit unbalanced about it all. You've sort of realized the dynamics that are operating in this environment, and you aren't mentally calm with it at the moment. So you're really trying to, you're a bit mentally overheated. You're ready to walk away, but you really want to understand how to then get the right balance. So let's ask a little bit more about the challenge that you're facing at the moment. I just realised you can't read those. That's Saboteur and Goddess. Okay, the challenge that you're facing at the moment. This is really at core a big ego battle. I do think that this antagonist is threatened by you, can see underneath the enormous transformative power and therefore higher power than they have, does not want to allow that to occur. A classic thing for this could be potentially being in a workplace where somebody is stopping you from getting the promotion that you deserve. And you may have to then sacrifice that, transform and move on, for instance, because of that. There is definitely a battle, an emotional battle about keeping your sun under the surface, not letting your light shine to the same degree, keeping you in the shadows, literally. And it is causing you quite a bit of mental worry. In this particular pack, the Nine of Air or Nine of Swords is also about synthesis. So it's not just about sort of free-floating anxiety as it tends to be in the Rider-Waite-Smith. It is about synthesizing things. So I think there is a clue there for you about the challenge can be start to be dealt with by synthesizing all the elements that you see around this. There's a synthesis that follows the breakdown of the transformation. If you think about the creation of a butterfly as being a very strong motif for this movie and for you, that when the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, all its constituent parts, as I say, are kind of almost broken down, literally to a kind of ooze. But then they are resynthesized to become the butterfly. So there is something in the pain of understanding this and letting go of the emotional stuff that's around it, whether it's the friendship, whether it's the workplace you're in, whatever it might be, transforming that in yourself that helps you deal with this energy, this person who's trying to hold you down. Okay. And this person would exploit your altruism. They definitely would. They're not altruistic at all, but they would exploit it. So you need to be aware of that. So let's ask for Spirit's advice in dealing with this for you. Okay, so Spirit is saying Traveller of Air is like the Knight of Swords, being able to go through the change, doing things that aren't expected, like tricking. I'm not tricking in a sort of duplicitous way, but just being unexpected, being quirky, making the decisions, making the move that you need to make is part of this. After a period of emotional reflection around what are the costs and everything, you are almost too willing to sacrifice, particularly if you're trying to help someone else, particularly if in this you're probably less likely to do it to help yourself, to be frank, but if there's somebody else you're trying to protect or help, then you really do have to get this in balance, because you could be too altruistic, and that could ultimately affect you really being able to be the Queen of Fire, which is what this is meant to be, and have your presence felt. So you need to think about the judgments of others around you to some degree, and reflect on the emotions around you, because you're in a highly emotional scenario of some sort here, and how to balance those things so that you don't sacrifice, because this is the thing. You could sacrifice your success, your charisma, your passion, all of those things, rather than have, I think, someone else be hurt. And I think this is the issue. If it's just about you, then I think it's that you need to work out how to move on from a situation so that you can revive that. But I do think there's an altruistic side of this. So I think there's something about this friend, and I think they are an ally, they are a support, they're genuine. But whether or not you can free them without suppressing yourself, I think you really have to think about that. Pile 3. So to get into a bit more detail, now I want to get a little bit more detail about other characters in this. And the first one I'm going to do is what I'm calling the director. So this is not necessarily someone who's in the movie, but it's someone in your life who maybe has quite a bit of influence on this. So if this was a friendship circle and it was frenemies, and it was, like whether or not you could be the leader of the group in the way that you should be, or whether you should actually break away from that or help someone else break away from it, for instance, it might be someone in a different group or a little bit older who's a mentor or a guide or something like that. If it's in a workplace, it could be someone who's senior and has some influence on the decisions and who gets to have the glittering prizes. It could be anything like that. If you don't recognise anyone that I put down here, it may just mean that there isn't a director as such for this movie. It's more like you're directing it. So let's see some characteristics of who might be a director of this movie at the moment. Or if you see it and it sounds like you, then you're the director on that level too. So we have Tang complexion, astrology, okay, and confidence. And we have fire and Kashmir. Okay. So something very fiery, creative, dramatic about this environment that you're in, or very passionate in some way. This person, if there is a person that is different to you, and as I say, if this sounds like you, it could be you. But this person has a very strong sense of the patterns of life and fates of life, may in fact know astrology, but if not, they kind of see the cycles of life and so forth. They would understand the transformative process that you are going through. They're very confident. They have really achieved something in life. I do think that if this is someone that you know, it's someone who's achieved at work, achieved academically, achieved in some way. They're a little bit ahead of the other players in this. That's why they have a kind of directorial sort of influence on what's going on. They might be someone that to some degree everybody competes with for their attention to some degree. They may have pointy features, animated gestures, unruly hair, flushed skin. They might also be a fire sign. They may have a tan complexion. But I think the main thing about them is if you have a director of this movie, they understand the broader cycles of things because they have the confidence and that has come from achievement in some way. Okay, so now we're going to pull out a little bit more detail about your ally and then also about your antagonist in a similar way using these cards. So firstly, the ally, which might help us work out whether this is someone that you are trying to help or whether they are just an ally who, however, is a little bit caught up in whatever the drama of all this is. So your ally, green thumb, quiet time, sense of humour, spots, and Pisces. Okay, so underneath the player, they're actually quite romantic and vulnerable. If they are sort of like seeing a lot of people and sort of like being in the game of whatever, they have a really soft inner core. They're certainly not the sort of antagonist in all of this sort of energy. They are quite sweet, and they do like to feel secure. They may have a green thumb, like gardening, that sort of thing, or plants. You know, if it's in a workplace, they might be someone who likes to have plants around their office or their workstation or something like that. They do, for all that they like to play and get into it, they also need quiet time. Very funny. I think that you have a very strong connection around humour with this person. And it's partly what makes them be able to navigate this. If they are not the person that you're trying to help, they may in fact be helping you around understanding all this by being able to poke fun at some of the heated drama that seems to be around this, and to give you a sense of balance, like not to get too altruistic and self-sacrificial. Okay, let's get a little bit more detail on the antagonist. Cardamancy, intelligent, healer. Ooh, okay. And snake and blue. Okay. So this is a formidable antagonist, I have to say. They are. But then so are you, because you are able to do the transformation. You are prepared to do the big stuff and everything. But they are formidable. With the intelligence and the blue there for speaking, they are very good at weaving a narrative, at convincing you or others that they're right and you're wrong, at gaslighting, at all of those sort of things. And they may in fact present themselves as trying to help and heal people. They may in fact, while they're actually sabotaging and controlling everybody, they may use healing sort of words and supposed approaches, and they might say that's their intent. If you try to sort of like confront them with the games that they were playing, they may very well go, well, no, I'm just trying to help everybody and this is your issue and I'm just trying to make you see your issue so that you can transform to what you are meant to be. But in actual fact, they're trying to control you and keep that, remember, Shadow King, that power under control. They are likely to tell you that any move towards power influence that you have is somehow you becoming dictatorial or something like that. There's quite a lot of projection operating. Some of you are around people who are into the spiritual arts, and I think that's partly why you chose this particular genre as well. Some of you are. This could be playing out in a spiritual community with astrology there and now cardamancy. Some of you are in the spiritual community, and this is about some sort of power game within the spiritual community, I think. With the snake energy, they could be born in the year of the snake. Otherwise, it just picks up cleverness again, that intelligence. They're curious. They can be alluring. At their best, they're wise. But I think this is a little bit more superficial with this person because it's a bit more controlling. They can be very calculating and very jealous. And I think they are very jealous of you. So if this is in a spiritual community, it's someone who they think you're going to take the throne. They can see the profound transformation you're going through. And if they can somehow manipulate you through your altruism, they'll do it. So I think you need to be aware of that. Okay, so let's get a little bit more detail on the story. Let's see what the fortunes are, where your fortune energy is around this movie at the moment. Pile 3. Okay, so you are kind of at that pivotal point where things could go one way or the other. Ultimately, your perseverance will be rewarded. You are going to have a happy ending in this, which is good. And I think that was almost promised from the beginning because the amount of power you bring to it. But you do have to be aware there's a siren call around you. This person could be very manipulative. They may appear like a friend. They may appear like an ally. Your real ally isn't this person. It's someone more like this that you can have a good laugh with or whatever, and who you may even think needs to sort of settle down and get a bit more serious about things. But they're actually really the person who you could rely on. But there's a siren call from this person. You may even be attracted to them. It's possible. It's possible, whether you give love a bad name, that this energy, this person is someone that you're drawn to, or you could potentially have a relationship with. And there's a lot of like revelry and indulgence in that, but it's going to steal some power from you. It's going to steal your capacity to transform and to help others. And as I say, they wouldn't be above manipulating you. So, but your perseverance, if you still go through the change, if this is someone who's like a siren call on, oh no, don't do that. You don't need to do that. You don't need to go and learn that. You don't need to give up a lifestyle. You don't need to do any of those things. It'll all be fine because they're trying to draw you in to bring your power down. That there is a siren call around all of that. But if you persevere with the change for yourself or for others, and so if there's someone who's a siren call on others and you're having to keep persevering with showing the other way, either way, the perseverance will win out. So let's have a look at some astrology energy for you. So we've got the 4th house and Chiron. Okay, so you're meant to be a healer. This is part of this transformative thing. Chiron is the wounded healer. Sometimes they can't heal themselves, so that is worth being aware of, particularly if someone's trying to manipulate you and take you on a less healthy spiritual or emotional path. You are meant to heal something. And remember this sort of story that felt almost like the Lord of the Rings to start with. It's feeling more like some sort of social or group dynamic, or potentially work, but social group or love dynamic, I think. But there's definitely that sense of carrying a burden and not necessarily being able to heal yourself, but wanting to heal others, wanting to help others. It is your strength and also your Achilles heel, literally. The 4th house is all about authenticity to who you are at home, and it could be about where you belong. So there could be something in this about belonging, and I think it connects to the healing and to the spiritual stuff. I do think many of the people who've come here, this will play out in some way in your spiritual practice or spiritual life and the people that you are around. So you need to be very, very careful, because your transformative energy and your power is significant, but it will draw a lot of jealousy, and it is possible because you are so altruistic, and we judge people by ourselves. And if you're coming from an altruistic, true spiritual place, you may well think others are when they aren't. So you just need to be aware of that. Now, at some point in every movie, the hero feels a bit alone. So I wanted to pull a card from the Into the Lonely Woods Oracle to see that energy for you around this particular movie in this particular part of your life. It says, the beneath opens up to you. Okay, this is the going into the chrysalis. It's showing that if you let go of, and that's what you probably need to sacrifice, let go of just the surface energy and you go to the depths, then the beneath will open up to you. And you can see here the characters sort of being met by a friendly fish. So I think when you really start to go into your power and into your shadow and understand that and not get influenced by others, then all of that enormous transformative energy will open up to you. But you have to almost get to that point where you're happy to be alone and go into the depths rather than just be within the group. There's something in here about not being within a group which can influence you and potentially liberating others from a group that's too influential. At its very worst, and I don't know if anybody who comes here would resonate to this, but it could even be around a bit like a cult-like sort of spiritual group with all those sort of interplays and sort of love bombing and gaslighting and so forth. And you have to be prepared to let that go and be alone if that's the case. Because as I say, I don't know whether anybody who's come here has that, but this set of cards could show something like that. So to finish off, I want to get some crystal chakra affirmations for you and then some astro chakra energy for you. So, firstly, the affirmations. One connects to your root chakra and one to your heart. So this is about your safety and security in the world and about who you love. So whether it could be about love relationships, it could be about a number of things, this particular story, but it could be heart on another level as well too, but it's also about security. With cherry quartz, we have balance and drive, and it says, I create a balanced lifestyle and I am driven to succeed. So yes, don't let somebody stop the transformation. Don't give up too much for other people to make other people feel happy or comfortable around you. You're meant to succeed in something, and it's meant to be close to your heart chakra. Bloodstone brings flexibility and patience, and it says, I am flexible and I practice patience. So you would have to with a major transformation. You need to go through this step by step. You can't rush through it, but you need to stay true to what you are meaning to do, not get siren called off to what looks like an easy fix or a quick remedy or something that almost anesthetizes you to the actual pathway that you're following. Last but not least, let's get some astro chakra advice for you. So So we have the heart chakra again. So it's very much about love, like love relationships, love for others, love for spirituality, whatever it might be. Your heart needs to be connected, as does your sense of self-esteem and your own personal power with the third chakra, the solar plexus chakra as well. So we have the transformative power of love. Remember, this is about transformation. There is something about love in this. As I say, it could be around love within friendships and other relationships and sorting through that. It could be love of humanity, love of a cause. There's something about love that is transformative, but it should be dealt with a degree of gratitude. This transformation is actually for your good and for the good of others. And it brings you the power of your love with Venus there, and it empowers your relationships. So I think you do help other people. This is right from the beginning. Whatever happens with this, even if it is just by example, you are going to empower others. And I think that the main antagonist has the opposite intent. So you are on the side of the angels, pile 3. I hope that resonates for you, and I hope it's helpful, and I hope it was a bit of fun and enjoyable. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you do know what this is all about, because it's a fascinating kind of set of energies, I have to say, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 4, to your reading. You'll notice first up that I've kept the star card out from the tarot deck that we're going to use, and I did that deliberately for a couple of reasons. One, because you're the main character, the star of this movie, so that represents that. But secondly, because the choice of tarot decks that I had for this reading had within them some information for this first part of the reading, which is to try and work out the genre that we're talking about. Now, this does not mean that your life is literally in this genre, but it is more the sorts of storylines, the sorts of approaches or whatever that you typically see in this genre. And when you chose the Dream Vision Tarot, that to me is probably in the sort of elements of sci-fi, the extraterrestrial, the interdimensional, potentially the spiritual as well. So there's something in that sort of a genre, something that is greater than us, greater than just what is going on in this earth. Even if it is worked out on this earth, there is something sort of interdimensional or extra dimensional about your storyline, what you're here to do or what you're doing at the moment in your life. And there's something that has those sorts of senses of science fiction, which is about breakthroughs, the new innovation, technology, the expanse, travel, something in that sort of space is important to your storyline. And it has to do with the voice of an angel, some inspiration, something new that you want to bring in. And that you're maybe a little bit afraid of bringing in. When you get the voice of an angel, there's a sort of, am I up to it yet? And it's interesting that Kali is here for fear. So part of your storyline at the moment, part of your movie is about moving past the fear of consequences of your originality, of something that you are bringing that is new, of something that you've been inspired to do. And that once you move past the fear with Dionysus, there is ecstasy, there is pleasure, there is joy. There is something that you bring in that is actually very pleasurable to others as well as to yourself, the pleasure of creation, the pleasure of life. It could be some scientific sort of breakthrough. It could be an artistic, a beautiful piece of music, potentially, beautiful song that you would sing, something like that. But your storyline is about breaking through your own fear of not being good enough and just loving the creation and the new and the inspirational on some level. And it is expansive, as I say. It's something that's meant to expand way beyond the horizons that you're in at the moment. So say, for argument's sake, you were a musician, then and you were a busker, for instance. This is saying you're meant to be on the world stage, potentially. You're meant to expand out and truly love what you do rather than fear whether you're good enough. So your storyline is about finding that you're good enough and finding that what is new in you is the thing that is going to propel you to great joy and the thing that is going to expand your horizons significantly. Okay, so let's have a look at what the soundtrack of this movie is. So we've got Torn, and I just called to say I love you. Okay, so I think this is picking up the fear and the ecstasy. It's the two parts of the soundtrack. So the fear about connecting, whether it's in a love relationship, whether it's to your creative muse. I think for most of you it's more around creative muse or inspiration in some way. You feel torn, you're not sure if there's enough there, but equally there is a love for it. And in the end, I just called to say I love you, getting past the fear. You don't You don't ring somebody up to say, I love you, if you're sitting in the fear space. It's coming to the point of what would true love bring you, what would belief in self bring you, all of those sorts of things. So it's the journey from feeling not good enough to feeling able to come forward, whether it's in love or whether it is in, as I say, something creative, inspirational, or whatever. All right, so what we also had under this card were some cards to show the main characters. So we've got a couple for you, a couple for an ally or sidekick, and a couple for the main antagonist or challenger in your life at the moment, in this movie of your life. So for you, we have empath and wizard. Wow, look at you. You definitely have something new and inspiring to bring in. For your friend, oh, you've got a hot nerd. That's pretty cool. And water. And for the antagonist, we have Virgo and Libra. Oh, okay. So you, as I say, you're the wizard. You're the person who's channeling stuff from the extra dimensions, definitely. You are very wise in what you do. You're very skilled in what you do, and your empathy for others is off the charts. So you are very much a spiritual leader in some way, but you are more developed with the wizard than you give yourself credit for. And I think part of the reason is because of empathy. I think what happens with empathy with you is you connect so strongly to others that it's almost as though it kind of shows you all the broken and fragile parts of other people, and you bring that into yourself. So I'm getting that it's sort of, you have to learn with your wizard energy to put some boundaries around that empathy, because it's like you're inculcating this torn energy when you should be feeling much more confident, much less in this fear space. But you certainly pick up the fears of others, and you there's something in your song, there's something in what you want to express that will help other people with their fear as well. Your friend over here is interesting. You might kind of fancy your friend potentially with hot nerd, or they just might be very attractive but very knowledgeable as well. It's almost like you're the inspirational person and they're the person who can actually work out the technology to bring it all into being. It's, if you had a classic sci-fi, it's like you're the muse energy to drive the sort of intergalactic change, and they're the person who can drive the spaceship or they're the person who can set the program in place. But they're very empathic as well. You're actually quite similar in some ways. It's just that what you're bringing to this story, in whatever story it is different. They're bringing a kind of knowledge base or a technological knowledge base. They're kind of, and it's sort of like behind the scenes. You are bringing a kind of ancient wisdom and an inspiration. The antagonist is all about the detail and the legality, and that whether it's going to fit with something and whether it's precise enough. If you were, for instance, an innovator in the scientific area and they were sort of someone who could work out the programming and the sequencing, this person would be saying, does it fit all our criteria? Are we going to be able to sell it, market it, and make it legal and own it? Is it within our sort of structure and what we want to do? The antagonist here is the person who is the critic and the judge. They could be a boss that you have. They could be people that kind of consider whether or not seed funding goes into something. They're very, very much about the bottom line and about sort of the legalities and the sort of philosophy behind something. They would be a bit uncomfortable with raw inspiration, and they probably wouldn't even understand your friend, to be honest. So they are a bit scary because they hold the purse strings, I think, and they hold the contracts and so forth. So there's something about understanding and dealing with people who are not as inspirational and genius as you and your friend, the people that are involved in this are, but are still somehow in power. So, okay, let's have a look with tarot at what act you're in. And what I mean by that is that there's normally 3-act structure to most movies. The first act is sort of the exploratory, the challenge presents itself. The second act is where most of the plot points occur. Sometimes near the end of the second act there's a crisis point. Sometimes that comes near the beginning of the third. In the third act there's normally the really big sort of cliffhanger and then a resolution. So if you're in the third act, it doesn't mean that you're near the end of your life or anything. It just means this particular movie is coming to a close. But let's ask Spirit where you're up to at the moment. Okay, I think you're in the second act. I think we're getting that really clearly with these first two cards. One is 2, so I think it's literally pointing to the second act. But I think it's also with the Fool reverse, it's saying not at the very beginning, but not necessarily too far advanced yet. You've had the inspiration. You've probably connected to your friend or to allies that you can work with. You're starting to work it through, but you know that you are in a bit of a contentious environment. You know, in fact, that there's something you really can't trust, I would say, around this. You need to be careful. If you're creating something new, you need to be very, very careful right from the outset about IP and not sharing anything till it's ready. The good thing is I think you know that. With the Hermit reversed, you have been keeping it to yourself. You are now working out where it is safe to share, and I think it would be safe to share with a collaborator, but not necessarily with the person with the purse strings and the judgment at this point in time, because it's not yet well enough cooked. I think, in fact, what's happening at the moment is this Eight of Pentacles reversed is a little bit of now you're connecting with those that can stress test the idea in some way. So if it was a scientific thing that you've come up with, great inspiration for something scientific, the person is now doing the research with you. So you're sorting that through. If it was a beautiful piece of music, it might be someone who's actually doing the production values at the moment. So you're not yet bringing it out. You're going to, but you do know, and this is the good thing, that your environment is not exactly ideal, so that you need to be very careful and very pragmatic about what you negotiate, and if you do enter into some sort of legal contract, that you check the fine print big time. Okay, so let's ask Spirit for a little bit more information about the challenge that you're facing. Okay. So as I was shuffling that, I was also getting that some of the fear is around the sort of legalities of stuff, and it is about making sure you get the detail so that you can move past the fear into the enjoyment, and you can do that with confidence. What this is also saying, part of the challenge for you is material choices at the moment, who to trust, what options to go for, what sort of business to work it in, or whatever it might be. There's some very material choices you need to make. You know what your vision is, but you need to make some material choices, and it's going to require a different perspective in some way and collaborating with other people. And this is part of the fear. I suspect that many of you have either had stuff taken from you in the past, or when you've opened up and talked about your inspiration, it hasn't necessarily been accepted or valued in some way. This is where the fear is coming from. But to get to the ecstasy, you have to find this hot nerd over here, and you have to get the kind of collaboration to bring the details out. So your challenge at the moment is feeling comfortable with sharing it with the right people and knowing who the right people are to share it with. So let's ask Spirit what advice they have for you. Okay, the first thing I'm getting is if this is around some sort of creative project, scientific project, or something like that, don't take necessarily the first offer that comes. Or when an offer comes, do make sure you do your due diligence, because it's again saying that you're not quite at the point yet where you have all the right people around you. You may well have one really good ally or a few, but it's almost to say there are some key people that are yet to come into it. And it's by reaching out through some different way of communicating. So it might be, to give you an example, without showing your new thing, you could potentially start to blog or have a YouTube channel or go on Twitter or something. You start to reach out and communicate on ideas to bring in people who have a similar new way of thinking about things, because I just feel at the moment with this really controlling force here, you're not necessarily in the right team or the right environment. And Spirit is saying you can delay the decision. You're not going to lose what you could do with this at the moment by not acting now. So don't be precipitous about it. But equally, at some point, you'll need to pass through the fear, but you're not quite there yet. And I think that's why it was saying you're sort of like, you're not in Act 1, but you're sort of just in the beginning of Act 2. You have a fair way to go yet to really get the right people around you and to really bring this through. Okay, so to get a little bit more into the right people, I want to use a couple of packs that have different personality characteristics. And the first thing I want to explore is whether there's a director of this movie. And what I mean by that is someone who's not a character in the movie per se, but who has an influence on it. in the way that a director does. So it would not necessarily be someone you would collaborate with or someone who would be judging you or something, but it might be a mentor or a coach, or it might be someone that you look up to, that you follow their example in some way, or it might even be someone much further up in an organisation who has an influence on the broader picture or how far you can reach with something. And again, that might be picking up this sort of sense I have of reaching out through the sort of internet and so forth into a broader frame. So it may be that this person doesn't exist in your life yet. If you don't recognise them, they may not, but if you do, then it may say this is someone who is going to have an influence on how this all plays out. So firstly, we have water sign, procrastinator, and body art. Okay. And then we have soft and horse. Okay, so this definitely suggests there's something creative in this world. This person is in, if there is a director of this, someone who is above the antagonist, above all of that, they're in some form of creative thing. And so this is something creative or something artistic in some way. They don't get involved in things because they're a bit of a procrastinator. They're very much in their heart. They will get involved as a director in terms of sort of helping out, giving advice or whatever. If you touch their heart and you talk to their heart, so I think it's the song of the heart, that kind of thing will connect for you. But they're not necessarily an actor. They definitely are like a director. They're sort of separate from it all and watching it and almost they're not going to be someone who gives you the advice to move it forward. If anything, you're going to have to be careful that they don't give you an excuse to sit in their fear space. Horse energy could mean that they are born in the year of the horse. Those are some of the years of the horse birth. That characteristics are things like amusing, persuasive. They can be a bit moody. They're enthusiastic, independent, but not necessarily responsible. So this is not someone, I think, who is a director because they hold a position of power. It's more like they're an influencer. It's more like this is someone who maybe you would meet through blogging or YouTube or something like that. Someone who's an influencer, but not necessarily a prime mover. But they impact how people view things. But I do think there's a good energy around this. I don't think that this person would stand in the way of what you were doing. As long as they were sort of amused by it and entertained by it, they would go along with it. It's just that they don't get on with things, so you can't rely on them. You are going to have to take this forward yourself. Okay, so we're going to look a little bit more detail similarly around your ally and around your antagonist, just to see if we can get any more information for you. So firstly, your ally or sidekick or whatever. We have fair complexion, spontaneous, beauty and fashion. Yeah, I think a lot of you are in something creative. If not literally beauty and fashion, there's something about beauty and precision and elegance around all of this. And they can be objective, okay, and white, okay. So they may have a fair complexion. They're a spontaneous sort of person. And as I say, they like beauty, fashion. They probably dress very well. They're a bit shy. This is the hot nerd. So they don't necessarily know how attractive they are. They think they're all in their head probably. and they can be fun, but they don't recognise that about themselves. Very elegant, pure, kind of innocent in a kind of way. They don't know their appeal. This is someone who doesn't know their appeal, and you may well be attracted to them. I don't think they'd have a clue that you were. Maybe if you got really obvious by telling them the song was all about them, they would, but otherwise they're a little bit clueless about that, but they're very clever at what they do. All right, let's have a look at the antagonist, the judgy, purse string holding, material, business-oriented type of person around all of this. Earth sign, that doesn't surprise me. Ambitious, that doesn't surprise me either. Politics, okay. And rat and Aries. So there's the ambition. They're very ambitious, and like they could be in politics in some way. So there could be something that you're doing that has a political element to it, even if it's creative as well. But if not, they're a political operator. They know the environment they're in. They know how to get the money. They know how to go by the rules. They know all the ways to sort of work the system if necessary. And they're very ambitious and they want the bottom line. That's all they care about. The rat energy is, that's the year of the rat. So they might have been born in that year if you know their year of birth. But that again is very ambitious. They can be charming, talkative, resourceful, but they're very critical. So the issue that they have, the reason they're their antagonists, beyond the fact that they could be a industry gatekeeper in some way that you have to get past, is that they can make you fear rather than feel the ecstasy of what you do. And it's not, I actually don't think in this case that this person they're not anti you. They're just very pro them and they really want power and they really want to get to the top. If they feel that what you do will progress them, they will definitely support you, but you can't rely on them to always do it because it is all about them. So I think that's the issue. And I think right now maybe what you have is not yet well enough developed. It may be saying that eventually you could get them on side, but at the moment, if you went forward before it was ready, then you may not. And I think Spirit is also saying there may be better people to support you, give you resources and so forth than this person if you give it a bit more time and you reach out a bit more broadly. Okay, so let's look at some fortune energy using a fortune deck, classic fortune deck, around this for you at the moment. Okay. So you will receive news from afar. So yeah, there's definitely something about reaching out. It's also back to this almost intergalactic thing. There is something larger than life about all of this and about what you are meant to bring in and so forth. But I do think there is a very strong urging by Spirit here to broaden your horizons. That will bring in, your luck will soon change. And I feel like it's a positive change. I don't think, like the black cat is sometimes seen as something to be a little bit worried about, but I don't feel that's the case. I think it's going to be a breakthrough for you. And then use your skills to aid others. There's something in what you're doing. You're going to intrinsically love it and enjoy it, and it brings you ecstasy and great joy. But ultimately, it will be helpful for others. And that goes back to the wizard energy that you have, remember? So the wizard has come up twice. You are magical in what you do there. You are. If you're a magician, you'd be one of those ones that they said, was magical in what you brought through. You don't have to be a musician, but if you were, that would be the kind of energy around it. Okay, let's have a look at some astrology energy to see if that can give you some other clues about how to move from the fear into the ecstasy. I've got Chiron and fixed. So Chiron is a wounded healer. Chiron helps others. It could be something very beautiful and healing in whatever it is that you're doing. You could be working in science and on something healing. We've talked about that at the beginning. Could be beautiful music, could be anything. But there is something about understanding your own wounds, your own fears and so forth, and healing those and staying true to something with a fixed energy. So the signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio or Aquarius, you might be one of those or have them strongly in your chart. But what it's really talking about is consistency, stability, unwavering action. Do not lose heart. There is something very good here. Do not go into the fear energy. And choose your timing very carefully for when you bring it forward and who you work with. Okay, so at every point, or in every movie, there is a point, where the hero feels a bit alone. So I want to use the Into the Lonely Woods Oracle deck to see what that energy is for you in this particular movie. Drink from your own well, water from your own garden. Well, I think the beauty about that is that's what you're meant to do. You are highly inspirational. You do not need necessarily the approval of others. You will probably at some point need the backing of others, but if you reach out and find the right people and you stay true to your vision, then that's how you grow and that's how you develop a sense of self, and it's how you get past the fear. You sort of see this little figure sort of hiding in the garden, but look how beautiful the garden is and how it's bringing in the bird, it's bringing in the people to you by being true to yourself. So I think that's all you really need. The fear is more the critique of others, but you will find your audience in whatever way this is. Okay, so to close out, I want to get you some crystal chakra affirmations and then also some astro chakra advice. So firstly, some affirmations for you. root chakra. So this is about who you are at your base and who you really want to be. And the throat chakra about what you need to communicate in the world. So that fits. The root chakra here has red agate, which is about positivity and grounding. And the affirmations are, I choose to embody positivity. So yes, believe in yourself. You have so much going for you. You are the wizard, remember? Double wizard. And I feel grounded in this moment. So you can ground yourself. You can find the way through this. And throat chakra with turquoise is about purpose and clairvoyance. So the wizard, again, the empath. You will be able to read a room and know the right people to connect with and everything if you follow your gut instinct because you're telepathic. The affirmations are, I align to my true life purpose and I utilize my psychic gift of clairvoyance. So yeah, use that. Use all that otherworldly stuff that you have because it's going to help you steer the right course. And so to finish off pile 4, we'll just get a couple of Astro Chakra cards. We have the Heart Chakra and the Crown Chakra. So that's bringing in the sort of spiritual magic element as well too. In the Heart Chakra, we have Neptune about inspiration. And it's interesting, it's talking about forgiveness. So I think you may need to forgive yourself for whatever you feared, and you may have to forgive others who haven't understood what you're doing. I mean, as I say, I feel like this antagonist is not necessarily really directly out to get you or anything. It's like whether or not you can get them interested. Similarly, maybe for the influence of the director, it's sort of like a lot of this has to come from you. This is why it's saying drink from your own well, water from your own garden. And then in spirituality, we have the sun. So the sun, your life purpose is towards something that is intergalactic, that is greater than you, that is Dionysian. It's about source. So if you connect back using that wizard energy to the source, you can't go wrong. So you are meant to bring in something new, and the only fear you need to have is of fear itself, really. That and making sure that you use all this incredible empathic, telepathic, spiritual understanding and timing to get it right and to connect with the right people. But as long as it comes from you and you're clear on that and you move past the fear, then the outcome is assured. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 4. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you care to share about it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.